Everybody to our regular council meeting for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. All council members are in attendance this evening, along with our youth council members. We acknowledge that this land is a traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations. Ready to our regular council meeting. 1 second. I'd like to welcome everybody. Still doing it. Just a few technical difficulties. We good? All right. No, we're not good. On daylight savings time or something. All right. Well, welcome everybody to this meeting. We acknowledge that this land is a traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please remove your hats and stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We will go to Director Malandrucolo for our closed meeting report.
Mayor Bondi, through you, council met on November 3rd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. and moved into closed session pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 under Sections 239-2F and 239-2J to discuss an update on the sale of council, update to council on sale of town assets. And that's the extent of my report.
Of conflicts of interest for members of council this evening. Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict later, please just let us know. I need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the published agenda as amended to include Monica Carthers and Morley and Marnie Bowman as delegates. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councilor McGuire Blaze, any questions? Oh, you're already on there. Yeah, okay, sorry. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. St. Lori was on there officially. Yeah. Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder, the adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting held October 20th. Adopted as circulated. Councilor Allard, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to public presentations, we have Councilor Jason Mady to give us an update on the water quality open house that he hosted. Councilor Mady.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, on October 25th, we had a chance to host a community discussion at the Colchester Community Center, focused on the Lake Erie and the watershed in Essex. It's specifically the ongoing concerns around the beach closures, E. coli levels, nutrient runoff, and the community partners are all involved in this. I think I could say it was an excellent first step, a complete successful first step, but there's a lot more work to do. It was great to see all that knowledge in the room. So some of the people that were there were from IRCA, the Great Lakes Institute for the Environmental Research, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and the University of Windsor. We had strong turnout from our residents. That was one of the nicest things to see how passionate a lot of our residents were about their local waterways. It was wonderful. Local farmers, business owners. It really shared that we had a common interest, keeping our shorelines clean and our lake healthy. During the session, we heard from Dr. Katie Stamler from IRCA. She outlined some of the key factors influencing bacteria counts. This included runoff during heavy rain events and the impact of shoreline development. Dr. Tigwen Zhang from the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada discussed research on phosphorus and nitrogen management. One of the key takeaways from his session was how good phosphorus is for growing everything. Unfortunately, we don't have a supply of phosphorus in Canada. And that phosphorus that we thought was kind of lazy and sat there, it doesn't. It actually gets into our soil, into our water, and gets out to the lake pretty easy. So this really brought together the farmers and the scientists on this, because the farmers are paying to have this phosphorus put onto their field and don't like it running off into the water. They're working together on how they can best capture that. That brought a lot of good discussions and really neat ideas. Dr. Robert McKay from the University of Windsor's Great Lakes Institute spoke about the science behind E. coli detection. The need for better real-time data and sharing so that municipalities can respond faster when problems arise. One of the key points he kind of made was that by the time we see it in our lakes, it's really too late to act. Our Great Lakes are on such a large scale, the amount of water that's sitting in those lakes. By the time we see it there, really our chance to do something has already slipped us by. We really have to do something before it makes it to our lakes. The key theme that came out of this discussion was the connection between the land and the lakes. What happens on our farms, our roads, our ditches, the impact of our beaches and our lake directly. Participants agreed that progress has been made, but there's still a lot of work and stronger partnerships that need to be created between local, provincial, and federal levels of government. Some of the residents that showed up shared some of their valuable local observations, some of the fishing conditions and the recent beach conditions that actually helped prove or point out what the scientists were saying. There's definitely a correlation there, and that everybody's seeing these markers, and that it's really time to act. Moving forward, the feedback gathered from this event will help guide the next steps. I think it was really good to take the scientific approach, learn exactly what we're dealing with, not rushing into anything. Things that enhanced water testing, runoff control, and educational outreach, especially to residents and farmers. I think these are important next steps that we're going to be taking. And I mean, I'd like to thank Mayor Bondi for helping co-host the event, all the presenters there that donated their time, and everyone that came out on that Saturday morning to contribute to this important conversation. That's the key takeaways from that event. I could open the floor up for any questions. I don't have all the knowledge that those people did, but I did gain some, and maybe I could help with any questions or something that I missed. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Maney, any questions or comments from members of council? I do want to also thank you for putting it on. I'm not sure if Katie Stamler's presentation, if that's something you can get your hands on. I'm not sure if you can send it to council, that would be great. I found that one was really easy to digest too. Counselor Kimber Beek.
Thank you. And through the mayor, and Councillor Mady and your team for doing this event. I was really disappointed that I was double booked because I definitely did want to attend, and I'm grateful for the report. I can tell you for years I've been hearing about the importance of addressing the phosphorus and the E. coli. And I've also, as a Fisher person, definitely noticed the decline and our beach days, as we all well know, right? So I'm really glad that this dialogue is taking place, and I'm hoping this will springboard into many more such events. I'm deeply concerned with the announcement on Friday. And so I guess I'm asking you how, I mean, as a group, you came together, looking at potential steps forward and discussing possible solutions. And you say there's farmers and scientists now working together. And then we get this announcement about cutting 36 conservation authorities down to 7. When our conservation authority established 80 years ago, the mandate is to take a watershed based approach and to address natural resources like our drinking water and our flooding and just safeguarding our water. So how do you think, like, is this going to affect these steps you guys have just, this groundwork you've laid to move this discussion forward and address these concerns for our community? Could this potentially have an effect? Should we be ringing some alarm bells? I don't know.
To Councillor Mady or to council with the recent announcements from the provincial government to merge conservation authorities from 36 down to, I believe, 7. Councillor Mady, you're on the board.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So I can't speak for IRCA on this yet. We did receive we haven't had a meeting since this happened. We did receive an email telling us about this change that's coming to. Our conservation authority still has the funds and resources and everything in place to continue running for the next year at least. So we won't see the change here directly. They're going to continue moving forward with what they're doing. But it is an excellent point and a great conversation starter. One of the things that from Dr. Stamler's presentation is the fact that IRCA and the farmers have gone along. They've started doing these pilot programs where they're planting native gardens, if you will, along ditch banks and along their drainage ditches. And they've noticed that this has kept a lot of the phosphorus into the farmers' fields and not into our drainage systems. The farmers really like this, and they started taking a hold of these programs. They were first talked about locally in our areas, and they really, really gravitated to these programs. In fact, there was about $1 million for these programs, and IRCA had over $3 million worth of requests. So we can definitely help by getting these programs a little bit more funding and helping IRCA out in that. So it is a little troubling seeing that we might go down to only 7 conservation authorities. And if regionally our area doesn't have the representation in these conservation authorities, you know, I wouldn't want to speculate on what the impacts of that might be. So it's gonna be very important that we keep a strong voice and hope that these new conservation authorities or these new boundaries will help align with our watershed, and that we can maybe drum up some of the support for these programs that are proven to be working now and that there is support for. So much so that moving forward, IRCA would like to start making targeted approaches into the northern areas to try to get the farmers. We see a lot of that was taken on our southern side, which is doing great for our water coming into Lake Erie and moving eastward. For us, though, the water coming from Lake St. Clair and moving through the Detroit River, there hasn't been such an uptake on that. So we're still seeing a lot of that phosphorus coming around. That's why we said algae bloom reaching across the western basin of Lake Erie so often. So sorry, we're kind of running on here on this answer, but so there's a lot of impacts to it. And I would really like to see our next steps talking with our other municipal neighbors, perhaps hosting another event like this, but with our MP, our MPP, and our local neighbors together, because if we have to do it as lower tier municipalities, we're going to have to work together. This is going to have to become something regional, especially if we're not going to see the help from our larger municipalities in this.
I assumed you would probably have a response similar to that because it worried me, but this is incredible. I just wrote this down. Like there's a simple approach of planting native plants along our ditch banks to help slow the phosphorus from getting into our lakes. We got to promote that. Thank you.
So also, I believe the IRCA chair is going to county council on Wednesday. I've just been in touch with her today and to bring comments. So if something comes to county council, we can bring it to our local council in support of IRCA. Okay, if I see no further questions, to Councillor Maney, looking for a mover and a seconder that the verbal report regarding water quality be received. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Allard, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to reports from administration, we have legal and legislative services, taxi cab licensing, and we'll go to our manager, Corey Smart. Welcome, Corey.
Okay. At its regular meeting on December 2nd, 2024, Council made the resolution to direct administration to investigate and propose options to waive taxi cab licensing fees in the town. This stemmed from conversations and discussions with the police board and MAD, which recommended trying to increase transportation options within the town to help prevent drinking and driving. The town only had one licensed taxi cab registration for 2023 and 2024, and in 2025 it had 0. The purpose of this report is to recommend an amendment to the taxi cab bylaw, which is bylaw 1052, to remove the licensing fees for taxi cabs in their entirety on a 13-month trial period from December 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2026. The report's also to provide council with a summary of the research that was conducted related to proposed amendments, as well as the process for implementation and any of the proposed amendments. Bylaw 1052 requires the annual payment of taxi cab owner fees as well as individual driver fees under Schedule 1. The licensing fees are currently set at $300 for the taxi cab owner license and $170 for the taxi cab driver's license, with both fees requiring annual renewal at the same rate. Bylaw 1052 also has several requirements in place to create additional safety protocols for residents and visitors who utilize taxi cab services. This bylaw was originally enacted to ensure public safety, qualified drivers, and consumer protection. And this is why administration recommends that Schedule 1 of Bylaw 1052 be amended for 13 months through the passage of Bylaw 2486. And what Bylaw 2486 would do is set the fees in Schedule 1 associated with licensing taxi cabs to $0 for that 13-month trial period. And this approach would allow for Bylaw 1052 to remain in place as it pertains to safety for residents and visitors while removing the fees for taxi cab owners and drivers. Along with this, advertisements would be posted to encourage license applications for taxi cabs to be submitted immediately and reviewed by administration as early as December 1st, 2025. In the future, the fee will be analyzed should there be a sudden uptake in application and the requirement for a more significant amount of administrative time. In the meantime, the cost of processing the taxi cab licensing applications will be absorbed in the operating budget. And of course, I'm available for any questions, shall you have any.
Have Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions on this. Of course, I'm in support of it. But I have some concerns, but maybe you can alleviate that just so I understand it, because I'm not sure how this licensing system works outside of the town. So if somebody from Windsor picks a resident up with a license and they drop them off in Essex, that's okay. But they're not allowed to hang around in Essex and pick up and go back to Windsor under the current standards. I just don't want to create a state where, kind of like an interstating thing with trucking, right? So you're allowed to drop off here, you're just not allowed to pick up if you're not licensed. That's because I wouldn't want to create a system where, say, everybody from Windsor comes out and applies for a license in Essex and avoids paying licensing fee in, say, the city of Windsor.
Yeah. It's a little bit difficult because you're not completely restrained to, if you pick somebody up in Essex, that you're not able to take them to Cottam or something. But that being said, the point of specifically the way the Municipal Act has it is basically for picking up within our town. like I said, there's a little bit of difficulty exactly with that. Every municipality has to deal with that issue. But yeah, that's the intent is for having people who are being picked up within our town specifically.
Here to add to what our manager's saying is, from a practical perspective, we can't police who's coming in and picking people up or who's dropping people off. Really, what we're doing is with the licensing is we're stopping advertisements of taxis in the town. So once you're licensed, you can advertise without a problem, basically. So this is allowing you to advertise for no fee.
My only worry, I'm trying to, devil's advocate, I'm looking at how it could potentially be abused. I mean, I really want to see some taxis in the town of Essex. I just didn't want to see an influx trying to avoid paying in other areas. Thank you.
Hammond.
So, the taxi cab industry's been totally obliterated by Uber and stuff like that. What is the benefits, say, to the taxi cab company for having a license in Essex? And what's the benefits to the consumer using a taxi cab as opposed to an Uber?
Absolutely right. And all research is showing that the marketplace across all of North America is headed toward rideshare programs like Uber and Lyft. What it can do is if you have a more community-based taxi cab service, it's more likely that they are able to pick you up sooner in your community. The difficulty we've seen with apps like Uber and Lyft is that if there's not a driver within the area, it will take a long time because, of course, it's going to be in the most populous area like Windsor. What it would attempt to do is if we have taxi cab services that are specifically licensed within the town, there's more likely an opportunity that a resident or a visitor to our town would have access to a cab sooner.
Council? Councilor McGuire, please.
Thanks through the chair. If you are an Uber driver in the municipality of Essex, do you currently, before this bylaw, do you need to have a license?
No, you don't. The reality is with Uber and Lyft, they're a very interesting space in how they work in the public transportation system. They operate very differently than most businesses do. They don't often have local ownership in any capacity. And that's probably why they have, such a large share of the market because anybody can sign up. So they don't need to be licensed in the same way a taxi cab service would. And that does create a lot of difficulty for taxi cab services as well.
Drew Colo wants to add something to that.
And yeah, so just through the chair, I just want to add a little bit more to what the manager's saying. So the other thing too is municipalities assume that because the drivers who work for Uber and Lyft are associated with Uber and Lyft, more security measures are in place. For example, when you are booking those rides through the website, you know that you're getting an Uber and a Lyft driver that have the insurance requirements that Uber and Lyft require. If you're calling or accessing a taxi cab, you don't know that that's in place because there's not a structure around that. It could just be a person who's painted their car blue and yellow, right? So there's not a set form of structure that allows for the security and the procedures that the online platforms allow for, and that's why usually municipalities are not as targeted towards them. But it's also because they're new and bylaws haven't been directed at them yet.
Thank you for the reply. So by removing this fee, we're giving our taxi drivers a chance to compete essentially in the market. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I was happy to see this report and maybe, just maybe with a hope and a promise, we'll get somebody to open up. And I also think not everybody wants to use Uber or Lyft. We do have seniors in our community and they may feel more comfortable calling like the red and yellow cab service. So I'm happy to see it. So will we review it in 1 year and see if I'm sure we'll hear if we get anybody, but can we talk about it again in 1 year? Because we may want to waive it again for another year. Like it's not really costing us anything.
extension of the 13-month trial period. We wanted to roll this out as soon as we can. And by putting that in the bylaw, that Schedule 1 has no licensing fees until December 31st of 2026, that makes us have that triggered review, because otherwise it reverts back to having fees. So we want to make sure that we have that time period. Like you said, hopefully somebody does want to come in. We have had, like I said, we did have one licensed in 2023 and 2024. So we'll see if the licensing fees are the main barrier to taxi cab services in our town.
Wondering if we could put something even on our social media saying, hey, if you're a taxi cab owner operator, come to Essex. We want you here. And the timing is good for a couple reasons. One is the holidays, but the other reason is we are going to be losing the Leamington to Windsor bus. And I know that taxi cabs are more money than a bus fare, but it's also something because affording a car is expensive. And when we first heard that the Leamington to Windsor bus was canceled, I hopped on the bus and I looked around and I was actually pretty heartbroken that we're losing this bus. I understand every municipality has hard financial decisions they have to make, but hopefully we can put some word out there, get some buzz out there, and really work our social media to attract a company that people can rely on. Did I get a mover and seconder? Looking for a mover and seconder, that the report be received and that the bylaw 2486 be read a first, second, third time and provisionally adopted on November 3rd, 2025. Councillor Verbeek, Councillor Mady, any other questions? All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Recreation and Culture 2025 update on recreation and culture programs. We will go to Miss Cynthia Cakebread. And this may be your last official report to council.
I'm hoping.
Is it? We'll have to make something up real quick.
No.
So for those watching, Cynthia has announced her retirement with the town of Essex. So I want to personally thank you for everything you've done with us for, I don't know how many years, but you will be missed. And maybe it's not your last report. So we'll see. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm hoping you don't surprise anything on me that I have to return to report on this. So, but I have before you a report and update on our programs that we've seen. We like to draw and show you from 2010 when we made a big corporate change in the way our department was laid out and the positions that we had, how much we've been able to grow as a result of that. And try and keep up. So I think some great stats are included. We're programming in a number of facilities. I think we are 7, 8, or 9 facilities with different programs. We're in all corners of our community from Colchester up through Essex. We have strong support within our community as well as a very strong support in non-resident users that are surrounding us. We have a very good reputation. I think one of my favorite quotes recently in doing our High Five accreditation update, our coordinator said, Essex sets the bar high. We are the gold standard in programming and how we're delivering our programming and how we're setting our standards. And amongst my peers, I like it when they say we can't all be Essex. So we're able to do a lot of things. We're very creative. Zach is here with me tonight, his last week in his role, taking over Katie Bortolotto's mat leave. He's done a great job in the last 16 months of really working on keeping on top of development of programs, promoting our programs, being creative with the new programs that we have to offer, and as well working, coordinating those programs both between our aquatic and our recreation side. So great, strong showing. He's going to turn some interesting ideas over to Katie next week when she returns. But I think the numbers speak for themselves when you look at the report, and you can see how much we do with a very small complement of staff that are leading the team. We have between 1 and 5 less full-time staff in our department than most other ones that are running lower programs or smaller amounts of programs. And there is no other community in Essex County that is currently running programs in 9 different facilities. They are running in 1 or 2 maybe. So we are stretching ourselves out, but still showing up and working with our team. I think another big important number is the growth of our part-time staff. We used to have to heavily wait upon our aquatic staff to also do dry programming. We're at this point no longer having to beg, borrow, and steal them. We've developed a really good resource of just recreation-based instructors that work for us. And those are everyone who is delivering our immediate programs, working in our facilities, running our birthday parties, and doing all the special events, including dressing up as Bloomer and Petunia.
The teddy bear?
Oh,
No,
yeah,
the teddy
Tim,
bear.
yeah, we had our teddy bear picnic. Yeah.
Questions or comments from members of council? Counselor Hammond.
Through you, Mayor. Again, Cynthia, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for our community. However, in the report here, again, I commend you for the progress that's been made, especially in the last 15 years. But I'm struggling with some numbers and of course the costs, and rather than go back through the 2025 budget to see what these associated costs, maybe you could give us some examples, because I'm having trouble breaking down, particularly page 4, the March break camp. 2010, 35 participants with a revenue of almost $45,000, where we're up to 60 residents in 2025 and revenue of 240 plus, a growth of revenue for 436%. But that also puts the revenue or the price per person up 320% plus. And I'm also curious as to what costs are associated with this particular program beginning in 2010 and what they will look like in 2025. If you could just summarize.
Through your worship, what you're looking at is about a 400% growth across participants as well as, so when we had in total in 2010, about 300, just over 300 participants for the year versus 2025 to date now, we're getting close to 900 participants. So we've tripled our numbers. When you look at the rates that we charged in 2010, significantly less. We tried to keep pace both with the costs that are incurred by day camp or running dry programs, as well as being competitive within the market. Most of these programs, what we see as costs are the associated staffing costs. In the summer, we should point out that we receive additional funding for staffing from Housing and Social Services that help supplement that in the revenues. We work with a number of volunteers in the programs as well, but mostly you are looking at staffing costs, material costs, and then most of what we charge for is covered or more than covered in our dry programming. So a lot of the costs we see a surplus to what we actually charge versus what we make. So some of our programs aren't as successful. Our day camp is especially successful, and we are running at capacity with it. We've moved into 2 facilities. In 2024, we realized that based on the numbers that we had attending our program and the age groups that we had to split it out. That's why we're running our squad program now out of Maydell, and we're likely looking at next summer expanding that program a little bit from the Maydell site, as well as keeping pace with the program at the Essex Recreation Complex. So we do see very good cost recovery on our dry program sides.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Just another opportunity to thank you, Cynthia, Zach, and your team. This report speaks for itself, speaks volumes, the growth and the success of it due to you and your team. But one of another spin-off benefit from this that I didn't see mentioned, in the young people that are running all the camps with you, the March breaks, the Christmas camps, the summer camps, the instructors, running all the programs, the educational programs and the fun ones. They're all people in our community. They're all our young folks, and they live in our community and they're spending in our community. And that is just another spinoff from this very successful program that you guys are operating. And so I appreciate it.
Thank you, through your worship. I greatly appreciate that commentary. And again, it's one of the things to recognize that it is a never-ending development with the staff. From the day we hire them until they go on to something else, there is ongoing development, training, mentorship, evaluation. It isn't a one-time come aboard and we'll see you, at some point. So it's important to recognize the amount of time that's necessary in the roles like what Zach is holding and what Emily, our program coordinator, does, is working directly with those staff to really develop them. And we hear phenomenal feedback from our users on the quality levels of our staff. And that really comes from the top down on what they're doing to help develop those staff and keep them improving upon what they do and how they deliver the programs.
Thank you. And absolutely, I do know a number of, past employees and they do say the skills that they carry forward. It was a lot more than a paycheck that helped them pay for their post-secondary education, that they learned so much working through the program that they carry forward with them.
Mr. Foster.
I know from personal experience, I currently work on the aquatic side, and the entire employee base, it's all always upbeat, always pushing ourselves to be better, right? Like everybody's there to do a good job, and from personal experience, I'm always being pushed by leadership, coordinators, Zach and Sarah and Cynthia, everybody that works there to be better and better and better, and it just improves our programs. And from a boots on the ground perspective, it's run very well, and I see a lot of happy kids going out the door.
For a mover and a seconder that the Recreation and Cultural Report be received for information. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Hammond, any other questions, comments? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Finance and Business Services, Heritage Groups. We will welcome Director Kate Rowe to introduce this report.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So tonight we are bringing a report to you as a result of a notice of motion that was brought by the mayor earlier in the year. Council directed administration to provide a report prior to our budget deliberations on the levels of service provided by our heritage groups in the town and those that operate within town-owned facilities. The report contains an overview of each group and their mandates, some data on their finances, as well as the support provided by the town. You'll note that in the body of the report is information regarding grants awarded either through bylaw or the Community Partnership Grant Program, the lease fees charged to certain organizations, and other budgeted expenditures paid for by the town on behalf of the groups for the facilities that they're operating out of. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Questions, comments? Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go to our delegates first. Okay. So the first one we have registered is Lori Brett. Welcome, Lori. You will have 5 minutes. If you need more, council will just have to make a motion. Then everybody gets more.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I may need more than 5 minutes. So my name is Lori Brett, and I'm the Secretary Treasurer of the Harrow Early Immigrant Research Society, also known as AIRS. Our president, Lori Stevenson, was planning to be here tonight, but she's under the weather, so it's my pleasure to read our message. First, I want to thank the Mayor and Council for the Heritage Group's review and say how grateful we are that the town has recognized the cultural significance of AIRS and other historical groups in the town, and they've made space for us as well. AIRS has been a part of this community for 54 years, founded in 1971. Like so many service groups, we're completely volunteer driven, and we work hard to leave a positive footprint in the place we call home. In the report from the Manager of Financial Services, AIRS is described as aiming to preserve local and family histories and protect historical buildings and artifacts. That's partly correct, but it doesn't tell the whole story. We do collect and safeguard important historical documents and family records. We maintain a library of printed and digital resources, offer research assistance to the public, and foster volunteer opportunities that engage the community in the shared work of discovering and preserving our past. Our efforts at community outreach and engagement are a big part of who we are. Each year when we apply for the Community Partnership Grant, we're asked to demonstrate the value we bring to Essex. So let me give you a few examples. We have 111 members, the largest membership of the group surveyed, but we're also open to the public. In fact, most of the research requests we get come from non-members. Those are local people as well as inquiries from all over North America. Every summer, we attract researchers from afar who remain in our community for several days, staying in various forms of accommodation and frequenting our stores and restaurants. To bring history to life for local residents, AIRS hosts 9 public events each year, featuring presentations by notable guest speakers and opportunities for discussion and fellowship. These gatherings, enriched by refreshments, book sales, and a social hour, make history approachable and enjoyable. These events are advertised on Facebook and in the Harrow News with the words "public welcome." And we're thankful to the town for letting us use the community room at the Harrow Arena once a month so that we can accommodate these larger groups. It would be impossible to offer these events in our small resource center. We also share historical articles with the Harrow News so more residents can learn about our area's past. And we publish 5 research-based journals every year written by dedicated volunteers, including 2 published local historians who contribute regularly. Our forthcoming issue is 26 pages long and contains stories related to veterans of the First and Second World Wars, the 1838 Rebellion and its impact on Essex County, and a history of Colchester Village. Some visitors to the area wish to visit pioneer cemeteries. We arrange and conduct those tours, communicating with property owners when the cemetery is in the middle of a farmer's field. This year, we also participated in the Jane's Walk event by conducting a tour of a historic downtown Harrow, and that was a big success. Through these activities, AIRS transforms preservation into participation, ensuring that local history remains a vibrant part of the community. And in so many ways, the work of AIRS supports the town's goals for heritage, culture, community education, and tourism. Our hope is that the town recognizes the value we bring and the role we play in preserving our collective story. And that brings me to the reason why I'm here tonight, which is the access and space constraints that we are under. On the subject of access, unlike other heritage organizations, we do not have 24/7 access 365 days a year to our resource center. In the spring and summer months, after the ice is removed from the rink and the arena closes early and on weekends, we can't reach our resource center without special arrangements. We really appreciate the town has been flexible and supportive when it comes to after-hours access, but it's something to keep in mind when planning future facilities. On the subject of space, as outlined in Appendix A of the report, AIRS currently operates in just 513 square feet of space. By comparison, the Essex and Community Historical Research Society, also known as ECHRS, has 3,337 square feet of space. Now, we're not trying to compete at all. The work they do is equally important, but we serve a similar purpose as ECHRS. We serve a similar purpose as ECHRS, but in 1/6 of the space. And the report made that clear. Okay.
And can I get a motion to expand for 3 minutes? Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Allard, all in favor? That's carried. Continue.
Thank you. I'm almost done. So after 54 years of careful collecting, we have no room left. We literally cannot fit another bookshelf, filing cabinet, desk, or chair into our space, nor can we configure it to accommodate more furnishings. And because of that, it's almost impossible to accept donations of valuable artifacts, no matter how meaningful they might be, simply because there's nowhere to store or display them. And that is a major concern that we have. To properly function as a research center and community resource, we really need a few key things. We need an additional quiet area for researchers to work without interruption. We need a dedicated space for exhibits and displays of physical artifacts that help to tell our community stories. Ideally, we would have a secure and temperature-controlled archival space for our growing collection. And we would have administrative space to manage records and conduct business. Right now, some of our executive members are storing materials, shelving, and other furnishings in their homes because there's simply no room. That's our reality today. Last Thursday, we attended the master plan open house for the Harrow Fairgrounds. I did see some of you there. And we were encouraged to see that there is a 1,400 square meter addition planned for the community center. We understand that it's primarily intended for gymnasium use and maybe some office space. and that the specific facility needs haven't yet been determined. So we feel the timing couldn't be better to raise awareness about our situation and to ask that AIRS be considered as part of the future facility space planning activities. Please understand that we're not asking for 3,337 square feet of space, but we do need, which would be great, but we do need at least double what we now have if we're going to continue to serve the community effectively. So on behalf of all of our volunteers and members, I want to thank you for your time and your ongoing commitment to heritage and culture in the town of Essex. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have some. Thank you.
All right, I think what we'll do is we'll go through all the delegates and council members can make notes and then we'll double back. So don't leave, please. Monica Carthers from Heritage Colchester. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Monica Carruthers, the president of Heritage Colchester, and thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. And thank you very much for the report and letting us all know more about the other important heritage groups in Essex and how the town of Essex supports them. And I'd like to just share a few words about Heritage Colchester. We were established 5 short years ago and currently have 28 very dedicated, enthusiastic members. We're affiliated with the Ontario Historical Society to attain our nonprofit status. We work diligently to become a registered charity and encourage the heritage designation of the old schoolhouse in Colchester, as well as actively promoting the Colchester area for heritage, recreation, and art. We have contributed to the tourism of the town of Essex by offering live theater events that are in cooperation with the University of Windsor, and very popular outdoor markets 4 times a year throughout the summer. Since the beginning of the markets in 2021, we have welcomed thousands of visitors to the markets, which support local wineries, businesses, restaurants, recreational pursuits, and heritage of the area. This has been possible by cooperating with Christ Church Colchester for washroom facilities because we don't have an occupancy permit for the building that we lease. So we definitely use the outdoor space, and we can have very short tours of the inside of the schoolhouse, but we don't have an occupancy permit. Our membership has provided the town with engineering support on the old schoolhouse for furthering the restoration of our building, and also many unpaid volunteer hours to carefully remove unnecessary components of the schoolhouse and clean up the interior and exterior of the building. We have developed historical walking tours of the Colchester Heritage District, given in person, sometimes with interpreters in costume, as in our annual Jane's Walk, and a wonderful heritage walking tour brochure to facilitate self-guided tours. At times, our members have written articles that are published in the Harrow News, providing additional exposure to heritage and events provided in the town of Essex and Colchester. The town of Essex gets great value from Heritage Colchester's ongoing participation in educational and heritage pursuits, all while working to help restore the beautiful schoolhouse, which has been described as a significant heritage building, not only in Essex, but in Ontario. I'd like to also, I've already mentioned that we don't have an occupancy permit for the building that we lease. In reading the report, we see that there are 2 groups in Essex and 2 groups in Harrow and Colchester area. The Essex groups have 44 members between them, and the 2 groups in the south end of the municipality have 139 members between them. And I also noticed that the 2 Essex group combined receive approximately 9 times the funding as the Harrow and Colchester groups. And I wonder if there's a formula for this. Not that we ever would like to have anything taken away from anyone else, but just wondering if there's a formula for the designation of funds for heritage groups like ours. We thank you very much for your report and look forward to further discussions about this matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Morley and Marnie. Mr. Morley Bowman. Welcome, Morley.
Thank you. Am I on? Okay, good. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I think it's important that we put our few cents forward. But Our group has been in business since the 1990s, and our whole being came around as we were a group to operate the Essex train station for the municipality. And the original agreements were signed. It's been increased slightly over the number of years, and as we're into our 30 years now and moving forward. So it's been I guess a real work in progress. We put in, we have the station is open for 32 hours a week on an ongoing basis. It's that the major focus of that is to keeping the place open for casual people coming in for functions, or whole list of people coming through our municipality. Major items, we have the yearly train show, which is held in one of the facilities in town each year. Attracts people from all over the province in Michigan and even down into Ohio. We work with other groups in the town to work with units that are going on. For example, if there's functions, especially in the area around the train station, and it used to be yearly, but since you put washrooms in the area there, it's now the time is more used for times when it's closed, and which is now. So any functions that's, for example, coming up for the Christmas celebrations and that, we arrange to make sure the facility is open for things going on in the town, so the washrooms are open at any time. And it's a special things. We try to work with all the other groups. Out in Colchester, for example, their markets that they've had this summer, we tried to attend where we could get people to go out. And sometimes we have 16 registered members on our board, and whatever volunteers we can get for various function that goes on through the year. So the main core is the 16 members that are not just from Essex, they're from all over who are basically train enthusiasts, but have a great love for the heritage aspects of the train station and its the units that we have in there. And the one thing we're having issues with now is the space to store stuff that comes available to us, and we try not to turn anything down. It's good to keep these relics of the past, and so that we can preserve them and keep them going. I think that's about everything I have to say. It's just that the agreement with the town is basically that we operate the train station for the municipality. And I think the original idea was it was much cheaper to pay us a little bit than to hire an employee to be working there on a steady basis. And that's, I think, really where the essence, well, I was on council at the time, and I know that was the reason we did it. So, and it made sense, and it's been a great working arrangement. Municipality owns the building, they maintain the building, and we look after the day-to-day operation that goes on there. The janitorial services is done by us. We vacuum the carpets and all that type of thing. Special needs the town looks after, but all the other stuff we look after. Anyway, thank you for your time, and gives you a little insight in what we do. Thank you.
Mr. Bowman, don't leave just yet in case council members have questions for you after. At this time, I will seek a motion from council to allow Lori Cowick to speak because she's looking to speak at this point. Looking for a mover and a seconder, Counselor Meady, Counselor McGuire Blaze, all in favor. That's carried. Welcome, Lori. You have 5 minutes as well.
Now, first of all, they've received a paper that each one of us have listed, you know, the amount and the people. I didn't know anything about that paper. I never received that. So that's why I'm kind of a little confused tonight about what was going on. So I'm glad I came in. So I noticed Heritage Colchester said the Essex groups get a lot of funding. Just to let you know that Eckers gets no funding whatsoever. And we'll do a yard sale or something just to get the funding to go. And the partnership fund, we only used once, and that was for archival books a couple years back. But other than that, we've sustained ourselves doing what we can do to keep things going. Now, in Eckers, we not only keep Essex, we keep all municipalities anywhere around. We keep all Essex County, Kent County. We've even ventured out for people for family trees and where they've lived. We have been doing property research now for quite a few years. And at our place, we have the original land deeds. We have Essex, we have Rochester, Maidstone, Tilbury North, Tilbury West, and we're hoping to get a few more others as we go. So, and another reason why we have such a huge building is when I first started with Eckers in 2007, when they started, I heard that they were doing this, so I jumped on the bandwagon with them. We had such a huge collection of all the areas that we had no choice to get something big to begin with. So that was, I just wanted to get things clear that I don't know what they were, you know, the sheet where they were combining their places and things. But yes, so we're just like the rest. We always just trying to find money and keep things going, and a lot of heritage items. If you ever come in, there's a lot in there to offer. We still collect stuff today. Thank you.
To all of our heritage groups, I will turn it over to council for questions, but I do want to open up because I was the one that asked for this report. And the reason I asked is not to take anybody from here to here, but to have that open, honest discussion about maybe we can slowly bring the ones that are here to here, and even bring the ones that are here to here. And I can only speak as my position as chair of this council. I value heritage, and if it comes with an phased in increase in expenses, that is something that I think we as council need to look at, but we needed a starting point. And until we had this, we didn't really have a starting point, and it is kind of all, it's been hodgepodge. Personally, I just want to say I value heritage, and I thank all of you and all of your volunteers for what you do. Councillor Hammond, did I see your hand?
Couple questions, and then if you indulge me, I'd like to say something on behalf of Ayers and Colchester. I noticed there wasn't any mention of the Heritage Museum on Arnertown Road. Is that not affiliated with Essex in any way, or can anybody help me with this?
So it's on private property.
It's on private property.
Like same with John R. Park Homestead. We didn't include that one.
Oh, okay. So, and then I see that the steam engine, and we have another one of those brilliant leases where we own the property, they own the building. What are we looking after for that property?
Through the mayor, we do not really have any interaction with them, to be honest.
Cut their own grass and-
They cut their own grass. They do all the maintenance. They work with the COAN board with their agreement. So there is an agreement that is coming up in 2028, I believe, that we have to work with them to see if they're looking to renew it. That's also in partnership with the town of Amherstburg. So we have to coordinate between the four parties to make sure that that lease is operated in accordance with what our needs are and what their needs are.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Ayers, and of course, our Colchester Historical Society, what are we calling this? Heritage Colchester, our schoolhouse. I want to remind everybody that Colchester is the oldest surveyed village in this area. back when Amherstburg was still Fort Myers, back when Windsor was still Petticoat, nothing but a ferry. Okay, we had loyalists coming up here after the war, the revolution, and granted lands on our North Shore. And heirs collects these deeds and information with every passing family that is, with every passing family, they're inundated with all kinds of paperwork that shows the history of this land and how it was developed and stuff like that. And that's why they're so meticulous in hanging on to all these documents and stuff like that. And frankly, they're budging out the seams, how these people work in these conditions. I have no idea. Definitely something has to be done. I have the mind that I would like to see your two entities combine your efforts together with your new charitable designation and stuff like that. I think the need for government funding is overwhelming, and that the two of you could probably do a better job of getting more funding if you were combined together and trying to facilitate all your needs and stuff like that. Those two previous classrooms that were taken down out at the school could easily be funded and put back up there to facilitate heirs. And by that time, the washrooms and the infrastructure in that building could be taken care of. And we could actually have a museum that operates and maintains heritage information. I would like to see something like that, but that'll be up to you guys to maybe start that in conversation. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Hammond, other members of council this evening? Counselor Meady.
Thank you, and through your worship, I guess the first thing, one of our delegates had a question if there was a formula or something that guides us on how this is done.
The chair, no, there is no formula. So it's a broad array amongst the organizations. Some have bylaws that are specific to their operations that were, as one of the delegates said, grandfathered in from many, many years ago. Others approach the Community Partnership Fund through the Finance Committee and request annually. So there's a hybrid between old bylaws, new bylaws, and Community Partnership Fund requests.
And through your worship, then just as kind of a follow-up and kind of a thought to that, I mean, this is great. Thank you for bringing this forward, Mayor Bondi, that we did take a look at this and start some conversations. Again, I don't want to take away from any one group, but I mean, I can't help but to think of if one group is getting a $25,000 grant from the town and one group paid to have a survey done for the town for $25,000, that's like a $50,000 swing. And if we start equaling out these fields, maybe we could get a lot more done, and our groups don't have to join. They could all operate independently and successfully. So I don't want to see our groups actually being pitted against each other. I just want to see us find a fair way to make sure that we can fund them all. Thank you.
And Counselor Verbeek.
Thanks through the chair. I don't like to hear the divide between Essex and Harrow and Colchester, and that is what I'm hearing, and it's really disheartening. This is a capture of 2025. It does not capture the entirety of these groups' existence. And I'm sure some years other groups received more money than other groups. You're looking at 1 year and you don't know where that funding came from. That's not written in the report. It doesn't tell us what it's for. It could be for replacing of the roof. It doesn't say. So to try to pinpoint that out and say, well, they got more money than they did, and we need to make it equal because budget's coming up. That's not fair. That is an unfair statement. I love all of these groups. I think everybody does really good work. I agree. You probably need more space and you probably need better facility, and Essex building is falling apart. Everybody needs something, and it's where do we find the money and how do we make it work and how do we get you what you need? That is the question. It's not you versus us or them versus them. It is how do we work together to figure it out and get everybody a little bit of what they're looking for. So I love all the work. Thank you for telling us what you've done. Thank you for giving us an explanation. Thank you for this report. in starting the conversation of how do we get you more. It's great coming at budget to put it into perspective. We don't ask you to come before budget deliberations when we're talking about it. So doing it now is a great opportunity for you to tell us in the community what you do and maybe educate people as well. I want to take away them versus us. I don't like that talk. That's something that I really truly believe we need to stop saying. But let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can work it out. And I honestly do like Councillor Hammond's request on combining some of the things, like working together and seeing how you guys can work together. I know the train station is a huge tourism attraction to Essex. People come here from all over just to see our train station and hear the story about the town that blew up twice. That can be combined with, going in and seeing, maybe you had relatives who came here. Maybe they come from Colchester, and kind of combining all that. I would love to see some kind of tourism event just for history and combine all of you together and work together and share your resources and share your artifacts and make an actual, it would be beautiful if we could make an actual space where people can come and it's open to the public 24/7. They can come in and take a look at it and they can see all of these things. And I know that that's what you all want. That is what you all want. But maybe we can make it big and beautiful, and that would be amazing. Let's just scratch that lottery ticket and win the millions of dollars. So thank you.
Through you, Mayor Bondi, just a quick note. Most of your faces are all familiar to me, and I'm so grateful for the work you do to preserve our heritage and to, educate our generations now and generations to come. I look at this report and what pops out at me is almost just under 200 volunteers between these four organizations that are working on behalf of us in this community to preserve our heritage and to educate. And I am very grateful because it's not work for everybody. I value and appreciate what you do and the work you do. That's not something I could do. I don't have the time or the patience to do that kind of work. And so I'm really grateful for the nearly 200 people that you guys are affiliated with that are doing this for us. And I love the uniqueness of the four different communities that work together to build what you have. I just like and appreciate that the mayor brought this forward. So hopefully, talk of this meeting will carry forward and there'll be some conversations moving forward from tonight in the community and elevate some talk about your groups and let us know when you are holding these fundraisers, because from my understanding, the majority of these are covered by your own hard work and your own fundraising to keep these operational, and I appreciate that.
Any other council member that wishes to speak? Okay, any questions to our delegates? Okay, so as Councilor Verbeek said, please continue to send us your fundraising initiatives. You can everybody knows we have one council email, councilmembers@essex.com. And also I want to make sure, I don't think every group even applied for the community partnership grant. So now everybody knows about it. We'll make sure you get the link for it and you can make sure you fill out, what you need for the community partnership grant. Get that to us. And I think this is just a starting point. I think there's definitely a lot more conversations to be had. And I'm glad you all came forward and got to, reintroduce yourselves to all the work that you do. At this point, I'll look for a motion to receive the report for information. Councillor Hammond, Councillor McGuire-Blaze, any other questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you for coming tonight. You can leave. You don't have to stay. Unless you want to. Office of the CAO, organizational review, and we'll go to CAO Drew.
Thank you, and through the chair. So the report in front of council tonight is for information purposes only. There is no action required of council. In September of 2024, council Okay. So in September of 2024, council approved in principle an organizational review that was conducted by a third party known as Litton Consulting. And so this review is attached to the report, and it had various recommendations to the different departments within the town aimed at achieving an increase or an improvement to efficiency across the organization. The recommendations were split into two different phases. The first phase was set to occur or recommended to occur within the first 6 months of the study. And then the second stage was a longer term outlook. They call it phase 2 within the report, and it was to occur through to the end of 2027. So you'll see within the chart of the report that most of phase 1 has been accomplished, and this was approved through 2025 budget deliberations. And phase 2 will not be considered until 2026 budget deliberations. And it may only be to a partial extent, depending on where the tax rate falls, given rates of inflation and other increases. So you'll see within this report that there's some other staffing constraints that council and administration may want to review, even though they were not specified within the study. These were developed based on a current rate analysis of myself in the first 6 months as CAO, as well as staff that submitted business cases from their various departments. So at this point, if council has any questions on details within the report, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thanks through the chair. So the R5 was supposed to be effective January 2025. Was that effective January 25 and has it been completed, or are we still working towards that? Establish 2 business units within corporate services, implement management positions.
It was implemented January 2025, so it's completed.
Members of council? I just have maybe a high level question in terms of staffing levels right now. How do you feel we are doing in terms of vacancies, workload?
Chair, so I've referenced it to council a few times and in public that we are a small staff ratio compared to our other local municipalities. What I intend to do is bring a full detailed report to council with our current staffing levels. We have had several vacancies due to various reasons, whether it be medical leaves or other extended leaves. So we have been fairly short-staffed throughout the past few months.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of public? Councillor Hammond?
Kate, does that explain why we're still looking for a public works person? I see we got one filled and then I see we're looking for one. Or is it?
Through the chair, no, some of it comes down to budget constraints.
Okay.
So it would not be fiscally responsible to implement all of the positions that are requested within the study. So that's why we try to take the phased in approach.
I look for a mover and a seconder that this report be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councilor McGuire Blaze. Any other questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Legal and Legislative Services. We have a report from Director Malandrucolo on the proposal of a new integrity commissioner. Director Malandrucolo.
Through you. As council is aware, earlier this year, our integrity commissioner, Bruce Elman, gave us notice that he intended to resign as soon as possible for personal reasons. In response, the town issued an RFP to which we received only one proponent who could not address all of our requirements. After that, the town then issued an informal RFP, meeting with 3 potential candidates. We had 2 very good meetings with 2 very well-established candidates. And the candidate that we're bringing to you today, her name is Suzanne Craig. She operates as SC Consulting. The reason why we chose Ms. Craig is because opposed to the other candidate, Ms. Craig deals with her integrity commissioner services primarily on her own. So she's the face of her services. She has some people who work with her, but she's the main contact and she's the head of the services. The other people who we dealt with, they operate as a group, using multiple people to address issues. So we thought it would be good for the town for this person to be the sole contact for the town and to be able to address all of our issues as one individual person. Ms. Craig serves as an integrity commissioner for over 30 municipalities in Ontario, 15 of which are approximately our size. She's very well known in the industry. She is agreeable to a 2-year term with the town, with 2 extensions. The first extension being a 2-year extension on identical terms to those in her current agreement, and the second extension being an additional 2-year term on terms agreeable by the parties, mutually agreeable by the parties. So she's willing to enter into a 2-year agreement to start so that we bring us into our next council. And then at that time, that council can choose to extend for an additional 2 years. And then even another additional 2 years on top of that. So we can have this integrity commissioner potentially for 6 years if council is agreeable, but on 2-year extensions. At any time during the agreement, we can terminate the agreement on 60 days notice if we feel like another integrity commissioner would be more suitable for our town. We received a quote from this proponent, and we think that based on that quote, the cost of her services would be very similar to what we're currently paying. With the other proponent, the costs we believe would be much more. And as I said, even though she is the main contact, she will use some other legal professionals as necessary to help her complete her job. The timelines that she intends to keep is when she receives a complaint or a question from residents or council. She expects to respond within 48 hours, letting the complainant or council know that she's aware of the complaint, she's received it. She said that her formal response is usually done within 15 days, but no longer than 3 months, unless she tells us why. So if it's going to be more than 3 months, she'll let us know why. She'll give her reasons. Otherwise, we can expect responses between 15 days and 3 months based on what she's told us so far. Ready to open the floor to any questions. If you have any more questions about the contract, I mean, most of the facts were in the report.
Mayor Shepley.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to Director Miller, just curious, with the resignation of Mr. Alman, was he able to wrap up all his work for this council, or is there workload left over for the new person to take over?
Through the chair, the Integrity Commissioner acts as an independent body, so I'm not sure if there's anything outstanding. From the last time I spoke to him, I believe that everything was taken care of. If there's something that's not taken care of, it will transfer to the new Integrity Commissioner.
Please.
Thanks, through the chair. I believe there are some things that have not been taken care of. So would the residents who are waiting for those responses, would they need to resubmit their inquiry? Is that what you would suggest? Or can they just expect that those emails have been passed on?
The chair, being completely honest with council, based on the lack of correspondence we received recently from our current Integrity Commissioner, I would suggest that those residents, assuming that this Integrity Commissioner that I'm proposing is accepted and begins on December 1st, I would suggest that they resubmit their complaint on December 1st to the new Integrity Commissioner. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Mayor, just to touch on that, my understanding is there not a fee associated with the complaint that's issued. So if they have to resubmit, are they gonna have to resubmit a fee? I don't know if there is a fee or not.
So through the chair, I'm not aware of any fee unless it's, I think there was, yeah, I think you might be confusing with like an MFIPA request or yeah.
At AMO, Hamilton was given an award for removing their fee that they had, but we've never had a fee. So any other questions from members of council this evening? I just have a question regarding response times. So council members get the agenda at Thursday at 4 o'clock. If we find that we're in conflict, do you believe that she would have time to respond during the weekend? Because 48 hours may be 48, like Monday to Friday working hours. And because we get our agendas Thursday at 4, do we have enough time to get an opinion from her on a conflict of interest, not a complaint?
Through the chair, when I spoke with her, I did not make it clear to her that our meetings were on Monday. But she was very adamant that she's very engaged with council and that she responds as soon as possible to all council inquiries. She does, like I said, she does deal with over 30 municipalities. So I think she's constantly, from what I understand in speaking with her, she's constantly in touch with all of the municipalities. I don't think it will be a problem. Based on the feedback I've received from other municipalities, I don't think it'll be a problem.
I just, I do want to say that I am a little bit concerned about her workload. I just want to put that out there. 30 municipalities is a lot of municipalities. I've Googled some of the areas, Toronto District School Board. So I am a little worried about workload and response times, but I guess we have a few tools in our toolbox if we find that her response times are not effective. Director Malin-Triclot, sure.
I wanted to let council know, I did also think that was a bit of a concern. What I'm finding out is that the integrity commissioner position is really hard to fill now. The other proponent actually has 70 municipalities that they take care of. And then there's other organizations in Ontario that deal with other large groups. So what we're finding is that the integrity commissioner position is being filled by a small number of people for a large number of municipalities. I think it's the only way that they're doing it in an efficient and cost-effective way. So I'm hoping that we don't see an issue, but it was another thing that we're also concerned with.
This time, I'll look for a mover and a seconder that the legal and legislative report be received and that council accept the resignation of Bruce Elman as Integrity Commissioner for the Town of Essex effective November 30th, 2025, and that council approve the appointment of Suzanne Craig operating as SC Consulting as the Integrity Commissioner for the Town of Essex effective December 1st, 2025 through November 30th, 2027, with 2 options to extend for an additional 2 years each, and that council direct the clerk to do such things and execute documents required to give effect in foregoing. Looking for a mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Drainage 2025-09, acceptance of the tender of the Langlois Arner Drain. And we have Director Gerard here to speak in case we have any questions. I will get a motion on the floor though first, that the drainage report be received and that council award the request for tender for the Langlois Arner Drainage System to Major Construction in the amount of $616,000, including non-refundable harmonized sales tax. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councilor McGuire-Blaise. And is there, did you want to talk, Director Gerard?
Through the chair, thank you. So I did receive some correspondence from council with regards and concerns to the Langlois Arner Drain. So I wanted to speak to it and provide an explanation as a background on this project. On November 17th, 2022, the town appointed Peralta Engineering to be the appointed drainage engineer for the improvements to the Langlois Arner Drain and the establishment of drainage works for the proposed subdivision called the Colchester Heights subdivision. The engineering consultant, Dillon Consulting, working on behalf of the developer, prepared the engineering design for the drain as well as the subdivision. The role of Dillon being the consultant, working in the interest of the developer under the ethical responsibility that comes with being a professional engineer licensed in Ontario under the Professional Engineers Act. And Peralta being the appointed drainage engineer, also a professional engineer licensed in Ontario, acting in the interest of the entire watershed. Both of these engineers have extensive knowledge in development and drainage. The town, in partnership with IRCA, identified early on in the project that the Colchester lakefront residential area has sustained historic flooding events, and for this reason required the developer to complete a watershed analysis to ensure that there would be no negative impacts as a result of development, and would ultimately need to improve the drainage area as a result. Therefore, there was a requirement imposed on the developer to complete a hydraulic analysis to consider the capacity of the outlet and ensure that it's able to handle flows up to the 1 in 100 year storm event, where this drain is likely only currently sized to handle a 1 in 2 year event. This would make a considerable level of service improvement for the Langlois Arner drain, which would benefit the entire watershed, not just the development. And that benefit is costing the developer 100% of the costs, which is what you're being asked to award tonight, $616,000 and some change. This does not include any of the costs to service or prepare their lands for development of residential. It should also be noted that following the flooding event in August 2023, many residents in this area were offered the opportunity and process to submit requests to improve drainage in their areas through the Drainage Act process. Despite many inquiries, no residents have agreed to initiate works in these areas due to the potential financial impact. For this reason, the town believes that a benefit of this magnitude to the Langlois Arner drain would not otherwise occur without the development of the Colchester Heights development. In conclusion, the Colchester Heights subdivision received draft plan approval from the county on February 10th, 2025. The town entered into the development agreement on July 21st, 2025. Council approved the bylaw respecting the drainage improvement for Langlois Arner and the development on October 6, 2025. After going through extensive drainage process since 2022, including the on-site meetings, drainage board meetings, report consideration, court of revision, and all appeal periods have expired. This report is a procurement report that is being taken to council for approval because it is over the procurement threshold identified in the procurement bylaw. All procurement was completed in accordance with that bylaw and the recommendation from the drainage engineer included in your agenda. It's recommended that council approve the award as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Gerard, I will, Deputy Mayor, go around.
So I received some correspondence on this as well, and one of the things that I was looking at is this upgrade is something that is outside of his development. This is something just to upgrade this from you said a 2-year to a 100-year. What would the cost be on the residents if they were to have initiated this on their own? Roughly, I mean, if you have an idea what each approximate household will be looking at on average. Not, I don't want to hold you exactly, but
Yeah, through the chair. Ultimately, I mean, the drainage works that are being proposed are to benefit also the development, but will improve the level of service of the area. So inherently there will be a benefit to the development. That benefit for the entire area, including the development, is just over $600,000. So it's a very extensive benefit. We did do kind of a quick exercise internally using an old assessment schedule. So the previous assessment schedule for the Langlois Arner drain, and tried to assess some numbers out like the 616,000 to what the previous assessment schedule would have read. And each property owner was looking at, say, an assessment value of anywhere between $10,000 and $50,000 each. So very extensive amount of assessment that would go to each individual property.
that's quite a burden they would be looking at to pay over a period of time. We've been looking at all the problems and the flooding that has happened in that area, and this is an opportunity for us to improve flooding mitigation for this area. And it's already passed the drainage board. They've done their approvals already, and it's just coming to us because of the dollar amount. If not for the dollar amount, this would have been approved and moved along the way. And it's not a dollar amount that we're paying, it's a dollar amount that the developer's paying, if that's correct?
It's the drainage engineer assessed 100% of the cost of these works to the developer.
Okay, so further to that, I mean, aside from getting into some of the emails I received and a few phone calls, I can't in good conscience not pass this along. I should check my seat if I'm not going to pass anything that's going to improve drainage in an area that's flooding. It's very important. It's something that we're going to do. And from a 2-year to a 100-year, it can't do anything but significantly help. Will it solve the problem? No, but it will significantly help that area. So for me, it's a yes. It's an easy yes, and I question anybody who would have a no to it. Thank you.
Councilor Mady.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, I agree that it's definitely going to help. In fact, in my notice of motion, the fact that we're holding a contractor or a developer to a 1 in 100 year, that we're not actually thinking about doing it for our entire town is one of the things that I'm hoping to have addressed and move forward with. That being said, though, it does help with one particular type of drainage, but not all the drainages that's seeing along that county road. Probably the most significant one that we're seeing now is the sheet flooding. And I heard Urca's name being brought up again for comment on that. Is there any way for Urca to comment on sheet flooding in that area?
Through the chair, so Urca is the permitting body for this project. So Urca has issued a permit for the Langley's Arner drain improvements. When it comes to sheet flooding, sheet flooding is something that's kind of specific to a type of flood. So that's where, you know, the ground is inundated and saturated with water and it can no longer absorb the water. So it flows like a sheet over the lands, and, you know, trying to find its legal outlet. A lot of the time that water can't be collected and directed depending on the situation. And the Lakeshore residential area is a very unique area, with its own specific drainage scheme. And to complicate things even further is they're all municipal drains. So they are not funded by the town of Essex. They're funded by the users of that drain. So, in this specific case for the Langley's Arner drain, as I'd mentioned, we're at the end of the process. This is just a procurement process. It was important to note that Urca was involved. They have issued a permit, as well as the town issuing its approvals as well. We do believe that it's a significant improvement to drainage in the area. And as I mentioned, that it would be a significant cost to the residents in that area that, because of the dollar value, would likely not occur without the development of the Colchester Heights subdivision.
Yeah, thank you. And just as a follow-up to that, yeah, because sheet flooding is a really complicated issue out there. And being familiar with the Belcraft watershed and the fact that there had to be a diversion put in there to help with the sheet flooding that was happening and closing the county road off there, it would be worthwhile for every community along that road to look at sheet flooding and how it had to be directed. So yes, it'll help, but will it cure it? No. Is it safe? We don't know. The governing body can't talk about that type of flooding, right? So to have a conversation around it, I don't think I think it's warranted to have conversation around it. To be clear, I'm not trying to slow anything down. I'm going to support the report and the tender. But I think as a council, we should be having a much more conversations about the types of flooding that are happening, especially along County Road 50 there, and how they're closing that road and what we should be looking at doing to help protect our residents out that way. So I do hope we have more conversations on this. Thank you.
I believe Urca is going to come to our council soon for perhaps their budget pitch and a few other items. So that's a thing that we can talk to them about, because I've also had talks with Urca about sheet flooding. So sheet flooding is basically, this is a topographical map where up here is Harrow and down here in the white is the lake. And you can tell by the elevation, up here is dark red or dark orange. Down here where it's dark green, the dark green is the lake, but down here where it's dark green, this is flood central. I'm going to support the recommendation because I don't believe we really have a lot of choice, because we're here, because we got here because November 17th, 2022, we made a decision to get here. Since November 17th, 2022, we had the storm of 2023 and we had the flash flood of 2025. And for those that are familiar with County Road 50, south of County Road 50, every property that is currently being farmed is zoned residential. So all of this property south of County Road 50 is currently zoned residential, even though it's green, even though it's flood prone. So I'm worried that we're going to be the council in 50 years that I'm cursing from 50, 100 years ago, saying, why did they build homes down here? Why are we continuing to build homes down here, south of County Road 50, where we know there's sheet flooding? And how can you possibly engineer around 7 inches coming at you in 3 hours where the ground's not absorbing it? So I know we're here. I know development's coming here. It's historic flooding. I think we need to talk to Urca more. And I think we need to talk about future development south of County Road 50 and whether it makes sense. Not smart development to me. I do believe that this drain I will go on record saying I believe this drain will improve drainage in this area. No doubt about it. It's going to help the landowners, the new landowners coming. It's going to help the landowners east and the west, I think. But is it going to stop? My question is, and I don't know who can answer it. This is my question. How do we get an answer on the overall problem? Why are we putting more people in homes that are flood prone? That's the number one question. We're putting people in areas where we know the elevation drops like 20 meters from Harrow. 20-meter drop. That's like a mini Niagara Falls going all down through all these homes. So why are we putting more people there? I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. Councillor Hammond?
I'm interested in where we have a 20-meter drop from Harrow. Because when in Harrow, I'm looking up both sides, north and south. Where is there a 20-meter drop from Harrow?
Talk more about it at the drainage meeting if you want. Our staff can bring more maps, more explanations.
Well, we're on reading number 3 here.
Well, I don't think anything's going to stop approval of this tonight. I think approving this tonight does make sense. Counselor, any other counselors? Okay, we do have a mover and a seconder already. We don't have a mover and a seconder? We do, yeah, okay. So we do have a mover and a seconder that council award the request for a tender for the Langlois Arner drainage system. All in favor? Opposed? That's me. Okay, moving on to appointment, pardon me. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, you just said you were.
Well, I'm going to support it, but then I couldn't. Then I couldn't.
Okay.
It's going to go forward. I knew it was going to go forward. It's got to go forward.
Okay.
But
so one
but
opposed.
for the record, yeah, I said opposed.
Okay.
Yeah. Moving on to appointment of the engineer for the Philip Ferris drain, needing a mover and a seconder that council appoint N.J. Peralta Engineering under section 78 of the Drainage Act for the Philip Ferris drain. Needing a mover and a seconder for this? Councillor Mady, Councillor Guerin, any questions? Question? All in favor? That's carried. Appointment of an engineer to the Banks drain. Drainage report be received and that council appoint R.D. Spencer Associates under section 78 and 76 of the Drainage Act to review the Banks drain in conjunction with their current appointment for the Sinisac drain. Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor Allard, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Operations request of result for tender supply of bulk winter salt. Operations report be received. Council award results of request for tender of the bulk supply winter salt for $496,200, and that council authorize expenditures incurred in the 2025-2026 winter control to be funded from the contingency reserve. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Rabique. All in favor, or any questions? Councillor McGuire, please.
Thanks through the chair. So we're talking a lot tonight about watershed, and salt on the roads is a major, it runs off into our lakes. Have we ever looked into like a sand, does sand, I know in the northern communities, they use sand. Have we looked into an alternate method of making our roads safe other than salt?
Chair, yeah, there's a lot of research on this in terms of like the public works sector. The rationale for using like a salt mixture, it's typically salt mixed with like a magnesium to help encourage the eventual melting of the snow. The reason why we don't really use that here is because at a certain point salt becomes ineffective, usually around -22 degrees Celsius. We don't really sustain temperatures that cold that would require us to use sand over salt. Salt is also very messy, so after a large winter event, it requires a significant amount of cleanup to get rid of the sand, because that sand ends up in our catch basins, our ditches, things like that. There has been research on biodegradable products, but they come they have quite a few challenges. I use the example of beet juice. So beet juice has been explored before, where they actually spread beet juice all over the road. However, beet juice is extremely staining, so it's come with its challenges as well. We have looked and we do follow the research, but we don't really have a really great mechanism other than the process that we're using. What I can say is that we do brine our salt, so we do pre-wet. So we use like a brine mixture that we pre-wet the salt so that it becomes effective more quickly, which reduces the amount of salt that we need to spread. So that is a very economical way to keep salt usage down. So we do things like that to try and reduce salt usage as much as possible, especially considering, as you can see from the report tonight, it's becoming extremely expensive.
Council? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Operations 2025-12, request for quotation sidewalk winter control at 6 Harrow Colchester Centers. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the operations report be received and that council award the request for quotation for sidewalk control winter Harrow Colchester Centers to Landscape Effects in the amount of $135,000 per year, with the option to extend for another 2 years, and that council authorize excess expenditures incurred over the 2025-26 budget winter control to be funded from contingency reserve from winter control. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor Verbeek, questions, comments? Just one quick one. After our last meeting, I think it was the last meeting where we talked about our snow and downtown cores, our administration came up with really good flyers that are going out to both the Harrow Chamber and the BIA to notify the businesses of their responsibility. So I thought that was really good. I feel like we're much more prepared for this winter. Everybody's on the same page and everybody will be informed of our level of service and the residents and businesses level of service. Anything else? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Reports from our youth members.
All right, through the chair. So this past week was our last week in the fall one session. And we actually at the pool had pumpkins in the pool. And you'd be surprised how well they floated. And then this upcoming week is the first session of our next swim lessons. So thank you all.
This past week, our junior girls cross country team represented Essex, sending 4 athletes to the OFSA Championships in Brampton. This is the first time we were able to send a whole team in quite some years, so it was a good accomplishment. And then this is also an exciting week for us as we have 4 teams, junior and senior girls basketball, and then junior and senior boys volleyball, competing in the WEXA semifinals. This girls on Thursday and boys on Tuesday. So it could be a really big week for us. Thank you.
Perhaps County Council update. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
For October 15th, County Council update. The Director of Financial Services and Treasurer, Melissa Ryan, provided an update on the draft budget 2026. The current draft proposes a tax rate increase of approximately 3%. Of this, 2.81% or $3.97 million stems from contractual and legislated cost increases. Assessment growth of 1.13% helps offset these pressures, reducing the impact on existing taxpayers. I'm pleased to share that the Ontario Professional Planners Institute has awarded the County Council's Rebecca Bollinger, Manager of Planning Services, and her team the prestigious 2025 Plan on Vision Award, naming our official plan, One Land, One Climate, One Future, Together, Project of the Year. The 2026 Road Rehab Program, the proposed rehab program calls for $21 million to pave 31.6 kilometers of county roads and $3.6 million to add 16 kilometers of paved shoulders, expanding the countywide active transportation network. While funding is up 2% from 2025, rising construction costs and reduced external funding will result in 4% less paving than last year and require deferral of 3 culvert projects. Council has pre-approved $4.76 million in the 2026 budget for 2 priority projects. The Big Creek Bridge is on a 9-month timeline, and the Lonsbury Drain Culvert, which will impact local wineries. This work supports our State of Good Repair program using balanced 3-tiered approach, reconstruction, rehabilitation, and preventative maintenance the county roads safe and sustainable. And Mayor Bondi and I both commended them for approving that because it will help lessen the impact on our wineries if we get an early start on those. At EMS, a report from Chief Justin Lammers and approved the 2026 Land Ambulance Response Time Performance Plan. Key trends show that unit down staffing, limited resources outside of code blocks, and offload delays all trending down, while call volumes continue to rise. To maintain and improve response times, resource enhancements will be needed as demand grows. Ongoing tiered responses agreements with local fire departments and public access defibrillators program are helping to improve the sudden cardiac arrest arrival times. EMS is also transitioning to a new integral gold standard dispatching system, evidence-based, regularly updated, and more precise. It is slated to reduce over triaging, keeping ambulances available for critical cases. This plan strengthens both efficiency and life-saving response across the region. And finally, County Council approved a notice of motion from Mayor Bondi to direct administration to invite Service Manager for Windsor Essex Social Housing to an upcoming meeting of County Council to discuss concerns and opportunities related to its operations and social housing stock. And that's my County Council report.
Mayor Shepley, there have been, I think, 3 Windsor Star articles on social housing. So if you have the opportunity, council, to read them, it talks more about that story. Looking for a mover and a seconder to receive the county council update and county council minutes. Moved by Councilor McGuire-Blaze, Councilor Allard, all in favor. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Correspondence to be received, 13.1. Looking for a mover and a seconder that we receive all the correspondence in 13.1, and then if any members of council wish to pull any out, they may. Looking for a mover and a seconder? Councilor McGuire-Blaze, Councilor Hammond, all in favor? That's carried. Are there any items of the correspondence that any members of council wish to pull out? Councilor McGuire-Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. I'd like to pull out 13.1.3, removing HST GST from new homes to support housing affordability. I would like our council to support that and send that to our list of people that we support that.
McGuire-Blaze, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Any other items in the correspondence? Okay, seeing none, 13.2.1, Windsor Essex County Health Unit, Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week. I need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councilor McGuire-Blaze, and we'll go to Director Malandruclo.
Whereas antimicrobial resistance occurs when bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites change over time and no longer respond to medicines, making infections harder to treat and increasing the risk of disease spread, severe illness, and death. Antimicrobial resistance harms our health, food systems, environment, and economies. And whereas the range of antibiotic use varies from 403 per 1,000 to 755 per 1,000 residents across Ontario, Windsor Essex County leads the highest prescribing at 755 prescriptions per 1,000 residents in comparison to the provincial average of 535 per 1,000 residents. And whereas antimicrobial resistance is recognized as one of the most urgent public health challenges of our time, if current antibiotic uses continue, it is estimated that by 2050, approximately 10 million people worldwide could die annually from infections caused by resistant organisms. In 2021, bacterial drug-resistant infections were associated with an estimated 4.71 million deaths globally, of which 1.14 million deaths were directly attributable to bacterial antimicrobial resistance. And whereas without decisive global action, up to 39 million deaths could be directly attributable to bacterial antimicrobial resistance between 2025 and 2050, equivalent to 3 deaths every minute. And whereas World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week, observed annually from November 18 to 24, aims to increase both public and professional awareness of antimicrobial resistance, the campaign promotes best practices across healthcare settings to prevent the spread of drug-resistant infections and to preserve the effectiveness of antimicrobials for future generations. And whereas this November, the town of Essex proudly joins the Windsor Essex County Health Unit in raising awareness of antimicrobial resistance and promoting the responsible use of antimicrobials among healthcare professionals, policymakers, and the public.
Therefore, I, Sherry Bondi, Mayor of the Town of Essex, do hereby proclaim November 18th, 2025 to November 24th, 2025, can you say it again?
Antimicrobial.
Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week in the Town of Essex. All in favor? It's a mouthful. I've never heard of that one before. Essex Region Conservation Authority, looking for a mover and a seconder that the correspondence from the Essex Region Conservation Authority be received and that council endorse the appointment of Taryn as a party, City of Windsor, to the Essex County Source Protection Authority as a regular member with an expected appointment date of February 12, 2026 for a term of 5 years. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councilor Beatty, any other questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Committee meeting minutes. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14, together with any recommendations to council noted therein, be received, approved, and adopted as circulated via the Committee of Adjustment, the Essex Center BIA, and Santa's Village. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley and Councilor Meady. I just have one question. I'm going to kind of throw it out there. I'm wondering, I've sat in a few Committee of Adjustment meetings lately, and they're like really involved. I'm wondering how we can go about reviewing their mileage. They don't get mileage for their committees. I just want to throw it out there. I think we need to potentially discuss it because they have to go to a lot of site visits. And I wouldn't go, they don't get that much money. And if I had to, I wouldn't even bother going to the site visits because they're so far. Our municipality is so huge, so they're losing money serving. I'm sorry, CAO Drusevich.
So if council is amenable to us bringing it forward in 2026 budget deliberations, what that impact would look like, I think that would be an appropriate forum to review that.
I really want to support them going to their site visits. Anything else? All in favor of receiving those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Nothing under financial, nothing under new business, notices of motion. Director Malandroukolo.
Notices of motion were presented at the October 20, 2025 regular council meeting and are being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. The first one, moved by Councilor Meady. Whereas new residential and subdivision growth is occurring across the town of Essex, including in Harrow, McGregor, Colchester, and surrounding rural areas, at times on land that has historically provided drainage outlets for neighboring farms, older subdivisions, and existing residential properties. And whereas changes to grading, filling, or the installation of new stormwater systems may require that long-standing drainage routes be altered or rerouted to accommodate development. And whereas it is important that new development respect existing landowners and preserve established drainage systems to prevent avoidable conflicts and property damage. Therefore, be it resolved that 1, council direct administration to prepare a report describing how new development projects are assessed for drainage impacts, existing surface and subsurface drainage outlets are preserved, rerouted, or replaced to a proper legal outlet. Engineering submissions demonstrate that drainage from neighboring properties will continue to flow safely and without obstruction, and appropriate easements or drainage blocks are secured as part of subdivision or site plan approvals. And 2, that the report include, if necessary, recommendations on policy or process updates, such as changes to the town's development standards manual, official plan policies, or subdivision conditions to make these protections a consistent requirement for all new developments townwide.
People are looking for a seconder for this motion. Mayor Bondi, second it. Councilor Meady.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Most of it just reads for itself in that notice of motion. What I'm kind of looking to do is protect the existing landowners. I think in every ward I've heard of people's yards flooding or basements flooding because of a new subdivision that went in and cut off traditional access on where people were draining their properties to. I think that we could ensure that we develop responsibility. If we go with this, like this motion is not meant to stop growth. It's just to ensure responsible growth. I think it will promote some fairness and clarity. Farmers, rural residents, longtime property owners, they deserve the assurance that new development won't block their traditional drainage outlets. That's what I'm hoping to get with this report.
And thank you, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
So with respect to what you're saying, I'm just wondering, like, I know we do hear a lot of that of the perceived, that it's perceived that it cut off because of development, but a lot of times it's because their water they weren't actually taking care of their wastewater in some of the rural residential ones. I'm wondering what administration, like if Director Gerard might speak to, what if any, or if all of this is already being implemented currently in your planning and the things that you do on a regular basis in any development or housing or anything like that.
Chair, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, in terms of any subdivision growth, every situation is unique, right? So we have policies that we have created, guidelines that we have endorsed regionally in partnership with other municipalities in IRCA, like the Windsor-Essex Regional Stormwater Management Guidelines. And the truth is that they're all guidelines to create responsible growth and equitable growth across the region. So we apply those guidelines to every development. We always look to improve any existing problem that might exist. Sometimes that even comes at the cost of the town. We're aware that, sometimes developers require stormwater management that, they should be paying for all of it, or the town should be paying to maybe upgrade a system that might already exist. When we talk about drainage, in this motion, I think of municipal drainage. And I'm thinking municipal drainage, so development growth in the areas that we've been talking about tonight. So Langlois-Arner, Lips Beach, those types of developments that we've been seeing coming to the town. When we talk about water shedding from private property being cut off, that's water that's being shed onto somebody else's property with no right of drainage. So typically what you'll see, and this would have happened recently with the Colchester Heights subdivision, for instance, every time that there's a new development, whether it be in the urban center or the rural areas, we send a letter to adjacent properties to let them know that, your drainage in your backyard might be changing because you've been technically unlawfully draining water into somebody else's property. And it's typically a farmer's field or an agricultural field where that farmer doesn't really make too much of a stink. But now that a development's going in there, which typically goes a little bit higher, there's a requirement for you to now manage your water. So we send out a letter in advance of that development to provide that information, that warning, and also provide support and guidance to those residents that may be having their water cut off to, have somebody either from the building services team or the infrastructure team or drainage department to come out and take a look at their individual situation. So that's one kind of that we council touched on tonight, where, that's like an additional service that the town provides when development comes. But when we were talking about what I see in this motion is about, very similar to the Colchester Heights situation, where a subdivision is being built in the rural area. They're being required to implement drainage works. In this circumstance, and most every circumstance is going to require drainage works be improved for the existing area. Can't say that that's always going to be the case, because like I mentioned before, every situation is very unique and very different. But the town always strives for good, honest development with a legal outlet built on good engineering practices. We peer review everything. So we don't even manage all the approvals in-house. We ensure that we bring a third-party peer reviewer in to review those designs from another engineer. We're enacting drainage processes in the Colchester area so that it not only has the developer's engineer responsible for creating the design, but we're also implementing a Drainage Act process, which involves another engineer reviewing those works and reviewing that process to make sure it's for the betterment of the watershed and not just the developer. So we do have a lot of practices and policies to try and ensure responsible development. I mean, that's what all our jobs are here as experts, is to make sure that everything's being done responsibly, and in accordance with applicable law. But like I said, that was a lot to unpack, and I kind of rambled on a little bit. So I hope that helps provide the information you're looking for.
And so to follow up on that, it sounds like a lot of what you're asking for is already encompassed in what you're doing already. I'm just wondering, on a report of this nature, is there any cost to it, and what the length of time would be on the return on something of this nature? And obviously, I don't know that it would be applicable almost it would be hard to put it like a one stock to fit every development. I just that they're all different. I'm just wondering if you can speak to any of those, then I'll be it for my questions.
We can certainly put in a report. What I will say is that this report has challenges that are interdepartmental, so there'll be some work that'll have to happen between infrastructure and development services. So there'll be some coordination effort there, which will be a lengthy time frame going back and forth, working together on this report. What I will say is it's no surprise to anybody, so I could say it out loud, but we've had a large amount of notice of motion and a large amount of work in recent months. So this is going to be difficult to bring quickly because we have so many other motions and initiatives to work on. I can't pin anything right now because we haven't reviewed it, but it won't be this winter. It's likely going to be like at best case summer 2026 at this point.
My understanding, we are short-staffed in our planning department already too, so this would probably really tax that department as well in doing this report.
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, that definitely has its impact. It'll likely be Director Chadwick and I working on the report together. But obviously her department having to fill the vacant role, it definitely does play a factor, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed out that there have been seems to be an unusually number of motions going through lately, and I'm in the position that I'd like to see fewer, and I can't support this one because I don't need a report on the work that you're already doing. I would, however, like to see more detail into each development that's coming along regarding our drainage and stuff like that without just appointing a drainage engineer or whatever. I would like to see some reports that are saying what we're doing to address drainage issues on new developments, if that could be happening. But as far as supporting this motion to provide a report, I can't do it.
So, without trying to influence council's decision, we have had notice of motions recently regarding, in essence, a debrief on the flooding in Colchester and the Harrow area that occurred in September 2025. What we could do is, if this motion doesn't pass, I will ensure that some measure of this is included in that report. So we'll touch on drainage in the Colchester flooding report, for instance, to ensure that we kind of provide that description on at least, kind of number one of this motion, to ensure that, that level of confidence is at least captured in that already existing work. So just wanted to put that out there if the motion doesn't go through.
Madam Mayor, to Councillor Mady, I mean, there's nowhere in here that you're putting a timeline on. I mean, we all understand. I've had to wait, like, actually, the last term, I waited a couple of years for some reports, and that happens, and it's understandable, but at least it's in the queue. So, I mean, clearly this is coming on after as you said, we've rapid fired some report requests in the last few months, and I too plan to make an effort to slow down on requesting reports. However, this to me feels like a really important report, and I'd like to see it eventually. I mean, I don't see that there's any timeline on this.
Council? I will be also supporting the report. I believe that access to data is important, and administration can bring us, if it's not as detailed as, if you bring us something and we want more details, we can ask for more details. I think it's important that, even though we may have some understanding and our staff may have a lot of understanding on drainage, public perception out there, the public don't understand that new development doesn't necessarily have negative drainage impacts. We know that, if bringing more homes in is going to improve the hydro, but residents out there are screaming at some of us saying, how can you build more homes when we're currently flooding? How can you build more homes when we have hydro flickers? So I think a report like this would say we can build more homes and this is how it's not going to negatively impact you. I do believe the deputy mayor had a really good point saying a lot of times when we build new homes next to existing homes, the existing homes have been using those lands for a long time for their water. So I think we need like one-stop shopping where we can say to those residents, hey, you're getting a subdivision behind you. You may have to put in a backyard drain, connect to a drain, maybe ask the developer or go up to the front, go to the storm sewer at the front of the road. That is happening all the time. It's happening. I'm getting questions like that in Harrow all the time. There is no timeline, but I do believe it's a responsive motion to the public's needs. And I think it's an important one. Councilor Mady, anybody else? Councilor Mady, this is your motion. Would you like to speak last?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So to Councilor Verbeek, no, there's no timeline on. Our administration can take as long as they need to do it. The idea that everything in the motion is being done already, if everything was being done and we were working it, then the report should just write itself almost. If we need more knowledge ourselves on it, then we should be told what the knowledge that we need on it. I'm not going to disagree. We might be doing everything on this. It might be an easy home run that, yes, everything is perfect. If not, it's a good chance to take a look at our development standards and decide if there's something that we can do. If it was just the Colchester area, I would have probably maybe tried to make it a little bit more about just the Colchester area. But I hear about flooding in Ward 1 on backyards that used to drain to one spot and it can no longer drain there. What are we going to do? How can we help? I'm hoping that in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we don't have to explain those answers anymore. We've thought of that. We've taken into those drainage routes. We're holding some developers at a much higher standard. If we're asking in one area for a drain to be constructed to alleviate some problems, I would like it to see it as a general policy right across the whole board, so we don't have to talk about it as much. So yeah, the idea of this is just to give us the idea on the work that's being done. I'm not going to argue that our administration doesn't do a great job, and I'm sure they've looked at a lot of different possibilities over the year. What I'm asking for is just that to be done in a report so that we can know exactly the great job that they've done. Thank you.
That I would like to ask the clerk for a recorded vote.
Bondi, Mayor Bondi has requested a recorded vote. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote?
Support.
Mayor Bondi supports. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley opposes. Councilor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Support.
Councilor Verbeek supports. Councilor Allard, how do you vote? Councilor Allard supports. Councilor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councilor McGuire Blaze opposes. Councilor Guerin, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councilor Guerin opposes. Councilor Hammond, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councilor Hammond opposes. Councilor Mady, how do you vote? Councilor Mady supports. By a vote of 4-4, the motion is defeated.
As Director Gerard referenced earlier, he's going to try to incorporate as many things as he can in the reports coming to council. Moving on, 17.1.2.
Mayor Bondi, through you, the second notice of motion being brought forward for council's consideration tonight is moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze. Whereas at its August 13, 2025 meeting, the Essex Center Business Improvement Area passed a motion providing direction to Councilor McGuire Blaze to request that Town Council commission an on-street parking report. Now, therefore, that Council direct administration to prepare a report to evaluate existing and potential time limitations for on-street parking within the Essex Center and Harrow downtown cores. That includes community feedback from Essex residents and business.
Councilor McGuire Blaze is supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thanks through the chair. So this notice of motion comes from the businesses. It's not like something changed overnight. We've received over the past few years several requests to have parking looked at on our streets. So just this past summer, the BIA asked me to bring it to council to see if there's something that we can take a look at. So that's why it's coming to you now. We just passed the minutes for this last week or last meeting, and so it's on the agenda. When talking to Director Gerard, because they are so busy, we're not looking for a huge report that our administration's doing. What we're more wanting to do is a survey that we can send out there to residents and business owners to kind of get an appetite of what they feel. Are they happy with the parking? Is there something that we can change? Are there any suggestions? Kind of just get a resident survey, resident feedback on how they are feeling. And if everybody's great with it, then, you know, we wasted a few minutes with creating the survey and sending it out there and taking a look at the data. But if we can say, you know, there is a problem here in this section, maybe we need more signage, maybe we need to change the way that the parking is there, and kind of tweak it that way. So we're not taking a deep dive into it. We're just asking the public, what do they think? Are they happy with it? If they're not, see what we can change. And if they are happy with it, then leave it as status quo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. So thank you to Councillor McGuire Blaze for that motion and to the lighting up the workload on it. I think, you know, I went and met with Director Gerard and had a discussion about it. And through our discussions, it's apparent that some of our areas aren't properly signed. Like for instance, in front of my business, it's 2-hour parking, no overnight parking, and I wasn't aware of it, so I'm been currently parked illegally for the last couple of weeks, and I'll make sure I rectify that before those signs go up. So I think it would be great if, you know, if we allowed Director Gerard and his team a little bit of time and have them update, make sure all the signage is proper throughout our cores in Essex and in Harrow. And then we do maybe within a few weeks of that happening, we then take the course of entering into that questionnaire that goes out, because then at least we're having the opportunity to see where the changes, or not changes, where they're supposed to be, and we see how the parking goes from there. Because I'm sure I was probably one of your complaints that you received over parking through a business. Thank you.
Members of council. So I have a question to Director Gerard. Currently, what is our parking? Is it 2 hours? Is it overnight? Like, is it a hodgepodge? Is it different?
I don't love the word hodgepodge, but that's basically what it is. Yeah, the parking bylaw does break it down into individual areas. It's very difficult to just kind of explain. But the essence of it is that it is a 2-hour parking window, with no overnight parking between the hours of 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. And then there's also a special designation for the winter months where you cannot park there on Fridays. And that's due to winter control and cleanup. But Deputy Mayor Shepley did bring up a good point that there are a couple areas in the downtown, not necessarily in the streetscape area, but definitely on like what I would call like the outskirts of town where the signage could be improved, or it's just outdated and illegible, or not very clear. So we could certainly adjust that signage in our operating budget. We'll just have to do a time. But yeah, it's I would say for sure, I think no matter what, we're likely going to lean towards the no parking overnight. And I would say that the rationale for that would be that it is a mixed use area with mixed commercial and residential. So if we do allow parking overnight, there becomes an issue with parking availability in the morning when the business opens, or varying schedule between residential and businesses. So the rationale for overnight parking is valid. I think the biggest thing will come down to the time limitation and what maybe the public, the businesses, and council feel is the most appropriate time window. If 2 hours is enough to complete all of your downtown shopping and going for lunch and everything, is 2 hours enough? And then I think a part of that report would also need to be the enforceability of whatever council decides to do. So how enforceable is 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever council decides they want to implement. So it'll still be a fairly complex report as they are most of the time, but it's certainly achievable.
From other members of council? Anybody else? Did you want to have a final? Yep.
Also, through the chair, I don't mind postponing, just based on the only comment from Deputy Mayor Shepley. If we postpone this, get the signage up appropriately, and then once that's up, I think maybe we can I defer my own motion?
For that one.
You can defer a motion that's on the floor. So we would speak to the deferral first, and if we're deferred, then the motion stands until the deferment comes. So if you'd like to, you can.
Through the chair, could I just amend the motion to have the report come after the signage has been updated? So say, can I amend this to say, to be completed 2 months after administration updates signage in our downtown course?
I'm just gonna say, I don't know if we can say like 2 months after, like if we could hold it to them to say to absolutely get it done 2 months after. Director Gerard?
I think the time frame is irrelevant. Because I have to do a public survey, I have, you know what I mean? I would have to kind of coordinate that effort no matter what. So, if council is looking to complete a survey and complete an analysis of this parking, I would suggest just leaving the window out and passing the motion. If you did want to wait, I would recommend that we just defer it until you're ready to place the motion. So either a deferment or just pass the motion.
But I think while the downtown core would be well served to have that done right away, but when we're making changes or updates, not changes, updates so that everybody knows what they actually are, I think a little bit of time will need to be required that those businesses and residents get used to what's actually permitted. And then, so I'm not that I want to derail you. I just wonder if maybe 6 months or maybe we table this until a later date and you have the opportunity to get your signage up, the residents get used to it and businesses, then we put this, because I think this is valuable. I really do. And I appreciate that you brought it forward. I just wonder if once it's updated, then we give them some time and we look at it at that point.
Yeah, if you choose to defer or postpone, it'd be a motion to postpone. You postpone it to some certain event happening or a certain time period. You can do that. So you can postpone this motion until 2 months after the signs are in place, and then we could put it back on the agenda 2 months after the signs are in place.
Defer to a future date. We don't have to name a date. We don't have to say when. She can bring it back to the table whenever she wants.
So the other option is a motion to table, but when you table it, then you need to bring another motion to bring it back. So if she defers it, it's automatically 2 months after we could put it on the agenda. If she does a motion to table, then she tables it right now, and then she'll need a motion to bring it from the table, and then she could hear it. Almost the same, except the first one's more automatic.
McGuire Blaze.
I'd like to defer it to, let's give it 3 months after signage has been updated in our downtown course.
Okay, everybody understand? You have it, Director Malajukwu? Everybody, okay, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to the following notices of motion for presentment only, 17.2.1. I'll just let him, he's got to catch up.
Through you, the following notice of motion is for presentment only and will be brought forward for council's consideration at the November 17, 2025 regular council meeting. Moved by Mayor Bondi, that Town of Essex Council direct administration to investigate options for an affordable housing subsidy program to help nonprofits who supply affordable residential units in our community to use a subsidy to leverage grant dollars, and that such program be included in the 2026 Town of Essex budget document for deliberation.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to reports and announcements from members of council. We'll start with Councillor Guerin.
Want to point out next Tuesday, November 11th, Harold Legion will be having Legion services at the Cenotaph. Hope to see everybody there, as I'm sure there'll be a similar ceremony simultaneously as usual. And that's
Thanks through you, Madam Mayor. I too was going to mention Remembrance Day, and if you can't get to our cenotaph services, at least try sometime throughout the day and evening to support your local Legion. I also wanted to put a shout out for the Jada Charche Foundation is having Swifties Unite for Jada concert next Sunday, November 9th, and there's still tickets available. And it should be a real fun experience for young and old with a Taylor Swift tribute act supporting a great foundation.
Park Homestead is having a Makers Market December 7th at 11 a.m. So everybody come out there with get your Maker Market.
I just want to congratulate the BIA, all the businesses downtown Essex Center, and everybody who participated in the Tiny Tots Parade Halloween Day. It was great turnout. They raised the entrance fee is canned goods for the Essex Food Bank, and they have a lot of canned goods, so they filled the van. We had a lot of little ones who had a lot of fun. Thanks to the high school kids who came out and volunteered their time handing out candy in our spaces. Also want to remind people that I know it's still November, but I've been asked at least a dozen times in the last 3 days. The Santa Claus Parade is December the 13th, 6:30 in the downtown core. It's the same day as Santa's Village, which will be happening all day. So December 13th, Essex is having a parade. We didn't cancel it this year, and it's December 13th. So thank you.
Bylaws that require a third and final reading. Bylaw 2487 to be read a third, finally passed on November 3rd, needing a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Mayor Bondi. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading. Bylaw 2484, being a bylaw to be read a first, second, third time, provisionally adopted on November 3rd. Moved by Councillor Garrett. Councillor McGuire-Blaze, any questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2492, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of tonight's meeting be read a first, second time, and provisionally adopted on November 3rd. Moved by Councillor Guerin and Councillor Allard. Any questions? All in favor? And that's carried. And I need a motion to adjourn now. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire-Blaze, all in favor. Thank you for joining us tonight.